Welcome to the tutorial on data definitions in YAWL. Data is defined in a process model in the YAWL editor. Let's look at the example we worked on earlier. This is the double check example. Data in YAWL is defined at case level. For this reason, I'll first start with the definition on a number of variables which are valid for my net. So I go to the net menu and select update net detail. Let's change the name of the net to double check net and create a few variables. For instance, let's create the variable customer name, which will be a string variable, and it will be a local variable for the net. Let's also create check1 variable, which will be a Boolean variable, also local, and assign the value false to it as default. And finally, let's create check2 variable, which should be a Boolean variable, also local for the process, and also we assign the default value false to it. This is minimal set of data variables, but that will be enough for the example, so I'll just select done. Next, I'll need to define the input and output data for each task. This can be done in two different ways, and I'll start with the simplest one. So I right-click on a task, register inquiry for the moment, and I select decompose to direct data transfer. In the menu which I get, I can see all the net variables and select those of them which can be used as input and output variables for the task. So now I select customer name, which means that the name of the customer has to be entered during the execution of the register inquiry task, and select done. For the check1 task, I select decompose to direct data transfer. It can be convenient to see whose customer we are working with, and then as output we select check1, and we're ready. For check2, we do the similar, decompose to data transfer menu, and then we select customer name as input and check2 as an output data. The second way in which we can work with data and define input and output data is to go through the select task decomposition menu, and here for the send approval to customer, I'll create a new task decomposition, and then for the task create the input and output variables of the task. In this case, I'd like to have customer name as an input variable, and it is of the type string, and I'm done with the creation of the variables. Then I go to update parameter mapping, and now I need to specify the input and output parameter mapping. So I start with the input parameters, and I define that the task has a customer name as input variable, and will populate it from the net variable customer name. So I add the X query of the elements content, and I'm ready. This task had only one input variable, which can be seen here, and we have defined where it will get its value from. So we are ready. In a similar way, we defined for send rejection to customer the variables which applies to it. First we create the decomposition, which will be sent rejection to customer. Then we create the variables, and now I have customer name, which is a string and will be an input variable only. I also want to have a check1 variable, which will be boolean and which will be input only variable. And finally I create a check2 task variable, which should to be of the type boolean and also input only. And when I have created the variables, I go to the update parameter mappings, and because all these variables are input variables only, I will only define the input parameters. So I start with customer name, net variable, which will populate the customer name task variable. Then the check1 net variable will populate the check1 task variable. And finally, check2 net variable will populate check2 task variable. And I need to add the X query, and I can select done and done. Pay attention that when we go to update parameter mappings, we are actually able to define complex X queries, and in this way manipulate the input and output data to and from tasks. However, we will not go through it right now. And that after task decomposition is done, the Manage Resourcing menu is enabled from the drop-down list for the task. Now we save the specification. We got a new version. And this completes the tutorial on simple data manipulation in YAWL. Thanks for watching. Please continue with the tutorial on resource allocation.